you're not seeing wrong here. This is the top 5 weekly, and Dan Skip Allen is not here tonight. He's a little under the weather, so I am your frequent guest, Jeremy the Adam Adams, and I'm filling in as host tonight. I'm really excited because we have an awesome topic tonight, one that's very close to my heart. This is an actor that I kind of grew up watching back in the 80s, just when I was discovering my love of film. It is the great, iconic Harrison Ford. And to be with me tonight, we have two guests that I think are somewhat of a similar age range and also have appreciation for this guy. Yes, here they come, our guests. We have Brian Michaels and Nick Big Sal Carly. Brian, how are you feeling to be here tonight talking Harrison Ford?
Well, you know me. Harrison Ford is perfect for like our era. You know, he was kind of the star growing up, and even since then, he's done so many different movies, and so it's great to be able to discuss him. So I was glad.
Absolutely. And peek behind the curtain. He's filling in a little bit last minute, but he's a great guest. Always happy to see him on here, Nick. I'm sure you're this guy's iconic. I'm sure you're a fan as well. How do you feel to be talking Harrison Ford with us?
I as soon as you said Harrison Ford, I was like, oh, I got it. I don't mind jumping in at the last second. I will say there was a lot of movies that I had to pick from, but I think I have a pretty solid list for 5 minutes preparation. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm sure it'll be great. But yeah, you said it. The guy's got a heck of a body of work. Worked in a lot of different genres with a lot of iconic filmmakers. But I think that part of the trick will be to not try to have the same movies, to see if we, each maybe picked at least one or two interesting ones there. But it's going to be awesome. Let's run down the rules of how this thing works. Pretty straightforward. Each of us is one by one going to give our top 5 best Harrison Ford movies. We could be going off the performance. We could be going off the quality of the movie. It doesn't really matter. Whatever each of us wants to do. We'll start at the bottom with our 5s. We'll go up to number 1. And if we have a movie that the other person has higher on their list, we'll just give a little wait, hold on, and then we'll wait for the last person to do that movie. So let's jump into this thing. I'm going to go ahead and start with the guy who, knew he was going to be here a little longer, Brian. Why don't you go ahead and start off with your number 5 Harrison Ford film?
Well, another little peek behind the curtain here. It's I made a conscious effort to actually not include a Star Wars film. Yeah. Because for me, they're kind of in this league by themselves, and I don't want to take up 3 spots on my list with that, or 4, whatever. 5. Spoiler alert. So these are 5 of my favorite movies from Harrison Ford. Yeah, not necessarily ranked, just kind of different areas of his career, but the ones I like. For my number 5, I actually went with a comedy he did, one of his first comedies, The Frisco Kid.
Oh, this is a nice choice.
Now, this is a movie that a lot of people have never heard of.
I'm guessing we don't have that right now.
I don't have that. No,
a lot of people have never seen, and some people don't really like. And it's not a perfect movie, but it's just it's Harrison Ford kind of being his usual Harrison Ford gruff. He plays off against Gene Wilder as like this Amish guy who gets caught up, and I won't go on the whole plot with you.
Like a Hasidic Jew, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what it is. Yeah. And but it's just to see Harrison Ford kind of play the straight man in this comedy. I think that the chemistry between them works so well, and it's just an unexpected, funny movie that obviously was not my introduction to Harrison Ford. It was Star Wars, Indiana Jones. When I went back and looked at it, I'm like, wow, this is a movie I never expected him to be in, but I really enjoyed it. A Western comedy, Frisco Kid.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great pick. This is a real sleeper. I think a lot of people don't know this movie. And, there aren't a lot of early career Harrison Ford movies where he had a leading role, where he's got that vigor and that charm that he has like in the first Star Wars. So to see those early movies like this one is really cool. And I like it a lot. Nick, have you seen this one?
I have not seen this one.
Yeah.
I have sadly very little to contribute on this one. I have heard of it and I've heard great things about it, but I have not actually watched it.
So it was one of his first post Star Wars movies. Actually, I think it was like 78, and directed by the guy who did Dirty Dozen and Baby Jane, Robert Aldrich.
Robert Aldrich. Yeah.
So it's a good one. Check it out.
And now people have a new movie they can check out. Always good to get those deeper cuts on there. Nick, what did you come up with your number 5?
Okay. I went through about 3 or 4 of these for the last possible second, but going with a slightly newer movie, I'm going to go with his portrayal of. Sorry, I have to actually look at the IMDb to remember that. his portrayal of Branch Rickey in 42.
Anyone have? We don't have that.
No,
All
I
right,
don't have
good. Go for it.
It's keeping in the vein of sports films. I think 42 is a very good movie. Chadwick Boseman plays a great. Why am I'm
Jackie Robinson.
Characters.
Jackie Robinson.
A great Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford plays the GM of the Dodgers that brings him on and is with him the whole time. And I just feel like, with the time frame that Harrison Ford's playing, he just does a great job of of being like, okay, look, I know this is really, this is a really tough situation you're in, but you're an amazing baseball player, and I know it's time for someone like you to be in this league. And it's just, I don't know. I love the movie as a whole, and I thought Harrison Ford was perfect as that guy that's like kind of on the edge, like, okay, we need to make some changes, and he's a good player. I can't pass up on him. So it worked well for his age range, and I think it worked out really nicely. So it's a favorite performance of mine.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Brian?
You know what I thought I really liked about this. I thought he had a great performance, and then I also thought it was kind of it kind of was a shift in his career, not completely, but before that, anything he was in was a Harrison Ford movie. Kind of the same way everything's a Tom Cruise movie. You got to have his face big on the poster. This is kind of where he started taking some more support. I mean, he still does starring roles too, but he starts taking a lot of supporting roles in more movies. Whether it be this or Ender's Game, or even Blade Runner 2049, which is a supporting role, things like that. And I think that as he gets older and can't do all these heavy action movies as much and stuff, that I think he's doing a great job of kind of shifting his career and still finding roles that fit him. And he did an excellent job in this one.
Yeah, you did great, Nick, because I really did consider this one. I was looking at later in his career, and this is one that, I thought maybe if you're going to go from that period, this would be a good pick. But just to kind of go back to what Brian said about him playing more of these like supporting character roles, I think Harrison's always been a really good character actor. I think that, he's always had this ability to get into different characters and not just be the action guy. I think you even going back to the 80s, he's played a lot of those kind of roles. And this just really, he's older, he's a different part of his career. And this really shows, the different kind of characters he can play in it. It's a really good movie. It's, I think it's one of the better recent sports films. So an excellent pick there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go to my number 5. Like I said before, I was struggling. I felt like there were 5 just really obvious movies that I wanted to pick, and I wanted to break the mold a little bit. So when you talk Harrison Ford, he had a big career doing action movies in the 90s, and I feel like in the 90s there's one very obvious action movie that he did that really was a huge thing, and I felt I would not pick that just so I could try to shed light on something else. So I'm actually going to go to when he played a now kind of iconic character for 2 films, Jack Ryan, from the Tom Clancy novels. And I'm actually going to go to the second film in which he played Jack Ryan, A Clear and Present Danger. Does anyone have that? Not any. All right.
In my honorable mentions,
but
not in my main list.
So first we had The Hunt for Red October, where Alec Baldwin played CIA analyst Jack Ryan, and then they decided to do another movie and pull that character more, straight and center. So they got Harrison Ford to take over the role in Patriot Games, which I think is a really good movie, but it's kind of more of a straightforward, get the terrorist sort of thing. But I think when you get to the second film, Clear and Present Danger, he really kind of gets to sink in a little more into, there's more going on. There's espionage, there's double dealings. It gets more into the politics of Washington and the president and everything going on. And I just think it's a really good showcase for both the action side of what Harrison can do and also the intelligence. You really believe this guy, is a trained analyst and he can also jump in the field and do everything he needs to do. I think this is one of my favorite Jack Ryan movies because there's a character, Clark, who's, in a lot of the books, who's kind of like the guy who goes into the field and is kind of like an assassin almost working for the CIA. And they got Willem Dafoe to play him in this movie. And he, I think, is the best interpretation of that character that we've had. It's a really solid movie. And if one thing put it over the edge for me to get it onto my list, there's a very memorable scene where Jack Ryan has a tete-a-tete with the president of the United States, and he puts the president in his place, and, the whole, how dare you, sir? I mean, it's a pretty iconic moment for Harrison Ford. So for that alone, I did a little shifting, and I put Clear and Present Danger on my list at number 5. So, all right, let's go back to Brian. Brian, you're number 4.
My number 4, let's go with, it's probably the 90s one that you were avoiding just because it's got a little bit of action to it. That's Air Force One.
Ooh, that wasn't the one I was talking about, but that's a great pick too.
It's on my honorable mention.
Yeah.
Air Force One is one that, obviously if I included all the Star Wars movies or even all the Indiana Jones movies, it's not going to make my top 5 Harrison Ford movies. It's a little bit, I don't want to say cheesier than most of his movies, but it's just an all-out action movie. It's the kind of movie you just watch, and it's not intelligent like Clear and Present Danger is. It's just Die Hard on a plane with the president. That's what it is. Yeah. But I think in the 90s there was this shift in Harrison Ford where it went from like the kind of the charming guy that he was in the 80s, to kind of the gruff Harrison Ford we have nowadays. And I think that him, when he played the president in Air Force One, was kind of the ultimate gruff Harrison Ford. Everybody was like, "Get off my plane!" That's the famous line. But I just thought that it was a good balance of him being able to a little bit the smart guy, like you're talking about with Nature. But this is more of the action movie, but yet at the same time, it's letting him show his age. It's not trying to be this unstoppable guy anymore. And of course, you have Gary Oldman as the great villain. Yeah, Glenn Close is the vice president. Just has a great cast surrounding him as well.
Yeah, great pick. I cut you guys off and didn't get your thoughts on Clear and Present Danger because first time host jitters, but I'll go ahead and we'll get our thoughts on this one. Yeah, it's a great pick. You got to see him stand up to the president in Clear and Present Danger, and now you get to see him be the president and stand up to a terrorist. So it was kind of the next great next step from that one. And like you said, Glenn Close and Gary Oldman, it's a really fun movie. A really underrated director that I love, Wolfgang Peterson. So it's really good. Your thoughts on this one, Nick?
I mean, just to kind of reiterate what Brian said, but like that's one of the first films that I really saw Gary Oldman be Gary Oldman. Yeah. It's like that's the one that stands out if someone says, "Okay, oh yeah, he's the villain in Air Force One," and then being sort of a visual effects guy. The plane crashing into the water is one of the worst things you've ever seen.
Especially 90s CG for sure.
Especially now, it was really bad. But
that was when they have new toys, but don't quite know how to use them right.
Exactly.
Yeah. When the 90s thought they could do CG. Yeah.
I mean, for the time, I'm sure it was fine. But it was it's a very entertaining film, and like you said, it's more Harrison Ford going into like, oh, I'm going to be a big action hero, and like, it was a very entertaining. I love the film. It's a great movie. So it's just like it says, surrounded by a lot of really good actors. So it worked out really well. So,
and we've had a lot of presidents kicking butt since then. I think that kind of set off that wave.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he ignited the match for sure.
Yeah. All right. So Nick, let's get your number 4.
My number 4. All right. I'm going to go with I won't even waste any time. I'm going to go with The Fugitive.
That's the one that one that I bumped for Clear and Present Danger. Do you have it, Brian?
I have that a little bit higher on my list, but we can talk about it now.
Oh,
no,
okay.
we'll do it. We'll do it when we get to you. When we get to where you have it.
That's fair. All right.
So I will jump to my number 4 then, and let's see. Trying to pull up I'm actually blanking what I had on my list here. So my number 4 then is going to be, you know what? This might be a little sacrilegious to some people, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here. I'm going to go with, I did think that Han Solo had to be represented. So I'm going to go ahead and go with The Empire Strikes Back at number 4. And number 4.
Yeah, mine.
So you have that higher. I'm not surprised, Nick. All right.
Well, not much, but it is higher.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back to, I believe we're at Brian for his number 3. Then.
I'm going to talk the whole time.
Yeah, that one went fast with the skips there.
My next one, again, I was just trying to I like to represent from kind of all areas of somebody's career, and I think from when he started to try to stretch himself a little bit and do some more serious acting, a lot of people will talk about, well, another movie that you might have, so I won't say it out loud. I really liked Regarding Henry.
Good pick. Don't have that one.
Henry was one of those movies that, I mean, especially in the midst of all the action movies that he does, for him to do this, it's very quiet. It's a character piece. The whole movie is basically just about him and his family and him relearning how to live and kind of reinventing himself from this person he used to be. But I just thought his acting in that was some of the best actual acting he's done in films. I thought it was directed very well by Mike Nichols. You get to see J.J. Abrams as delivery boy. There's that.
He wrote. Is that
because he wrote it too? Yep.
Yeah.
But it was just as far as just kind of taking a different side of Harrison Ford than we're used to seeing, where it's just acting in a quiet drama. I thought it was a very excellent movie.
Nick, have you seen Regarding Henry?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
I have not.
It's another one for you to check out.
I know, it's like adding it to my list of. No, it's. I mean, I've certainly heard of it. It's yet one of those that I've heard discussed quite a bit in many communities, but never actually sat down and watched it. Annette Bening is in that, right?
Annette Bening.
Yeah, she's the wife.
Yes,
she's
the wife.
Yeah. I've seen the trailer. I just haven't sat through it. So, I mean, no, it looks like a really good, different turn for him, like you said. With all the other roles that he's had, it looks like a really good, different turn. So, add it to the list of things I need to watch. So.
All right, and I actually talked to my good friend Sandy Robinson about a little bit about this topic, and this is one I know he absolutely would have had on his list. So you're not alone here, Brian. And I love this movie. It definitely came close for me. This was just in that period coming out of the '80s where I think he was kind of trying to branch out a little bit, and it's a warm, kind of familial romantic drama. It's really great. He gets he's this jerk lawyer, gets to play the a-hole at the beginning of the movie, and then he's liquor store robbery and he gets shot in the head and basically has brain damage and has to kind of relearn everything. And
because he remembers who he was and he really hates the person that he was.
He doesn't like who he was before. He's just kind of becoming this new person and watching his family adapt to him and everything. And it's a really sensitive, beautiful performance from Harrison Ford, and just shows that whole other side that he could bring out. And it's a really good pick. Was very close for me. All right, let's go to Nick for your number 3.
My number 3, you've already said it. It's Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back.
Strikes Back, so we can talk about it. All right,
exactly.
I'll let you take off from this.
I mean, he's had great performances in the 4 movies he's been in, but. Yeah, I mean, this one just really stuck out from, the whole going out on Hoth and trying to find Luke and saving him. And I mean, there's not much to say hasn't already been said. He's this iconic character. Everyone loves his, shoot from the hip, literally. Basically just, just sort of, the sarcastic character. And I mean, he's established so many characters from his performances, and you can't not like what he's done. So it's a fantastic performance all the way through, and just Empire Strikes Back, and even a little bit into Return of the Jedi is, he did really good in that one too. So it was a toss up between those two, but it's just, he established that character, and we can just slightly mention the new Solo, but we won't go too into it.
Yeah, and for me, I was kind of close almost to picking A New Hope because he created an iconic character in that movie, has so much charm and charisma, and really he just became an instant star in that film. But I just think this Empire Strikes Back caught him in a moment where he was really he just brought a lot more. He was working with another director who kind of got deeper into the characters. Lawrence Kasdan doing the script kind of gave them a little more to work with. And I think it's just the one moment where Harrison Ford as an actor and Han Solo as a character really gels just perfectly at that moment where he's coming out of being the rogue scoundrel guy into being part of this team, and his relationship with Princess Leia and everything that he's going through. And then the tragic ending, where it leaves you on this cliffhanger where he's actually Carbonite, taking a Jabba. We don't even know if he's going to survive. And it's just kind of got that tragic arc that, we didn't get in the other movies in the original trilogy for Han Solo. I didn't quite have it as high because I just think, maybe he digs a little more into his some of his other dramatic roles than he did. Like, he's always kind of complained a little about the Han Solo and, getting tired of playing that character and being in those movies. But I still think it's got to be on the list because it's iconic. It's great. And of course, he gets a lot of bonus points for basically improvising one of the most iconic lines in movie history with the I love you, I know moment. So that him coming
and a
up
moment
with
that echoed to create one of the most emotional moments of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that too.
Where without even saying it, he says, "I know," and that Kylo Ren's saying, "I love you," and it's like,
all from an improvised thing, yeah. And I actually considered Force Awakens too because I think he's really great. He's coming back to the role in that movie too. But I think if you're gonna go Star Wars for me, you got to go Empire. So yeah. All right, and Brian, I know you didn't have Star Wars on your list, but I'm sure you still have a lot to say.
It's not because it's not one of my favorite Harrison Ford movies. It's just a matter of it because for me they kind of. I don't know. They just seem so obvious, and I want to talk about different parts of his career. And I know it's technically top 5. If I was ranking my actual top 5 favorite Harrison Ford movies, this would be my top Star Wars film, and it would be probably my number 2 film of all his movies. Yeah. But I knew somebody else would bring it up, and plus it's like you said, what else can you say? It's iconic, and it's Harrison Ford.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so for my number 3, I have a pretty iconic one. We'll see if anyone has this higher. I'm going with the legendary character of Rick Deckard in 1982's Blade Runner. Nope. Does anyone? All right. All right, so I know at least Nick has it higher. So we'll go ahead and jump to our number 2s. We're getting to the top pretty quick here. So Brian, we're at your number 2.
Number 2 is where I put The Fugitive.
All right, The Fugitive. All right. We'll let you. We'll let you start off on that, and then we'll go to Nick after. So, tell us about The Fugitive, Brian.
Fugitive is what I think is one of Harrison Ford's best overall movies, where it's got the entertainment of like kind of an action film, but it also has all the drama of a good dramatic film. And I mean, it was nominated for like 7 Academy Awards, I think, Best Picture, including Best Picture and Director and editing score, but it won for Tommy Lee Jones, of course.
Yeah.
But it was a well-received, highly acclaimed film, and deservedly so. I remember going into it thinking, who cares about the TV show The Fugitive? It might be okay. And it was like one of the best films of the year. Absolutely. And a lot of that is due to Harrison Ford and the way he played that character so well. And so I just thought that it is one of my favorite non-franchise Harrison Ford movies.
All right.
I mean, Nick. Just to bounce off of what he did, just that, it was one of those things that, it was very surprising. I wasn't expecting much out of it. I didn't even know about the TV show beforehand. And it's such an entertaining movie, and because it's just nonstop. Like, there's like no slowdown the whole time, and Harrison Ford just sells it the whole time. And Tommy Lee Jones is fantastic in it. Like, it's just, it's just really, like, you could tell Harrison Ford was really into the role. Like, he really was selling it really well, and it was just a great film all the way through. And it was basically nominated for every like editing, sound effect, all those things. And I was happy Tommy Lee Jones won Best Supporting because he is absolutely brilliant in that movie. Not that we're talking about him, but
but you got to mention him. There's no way you can't mention him. I mean, he won an Oscar. When I first was thinking the top 5 Harrison Ford movies, 5 movies came to mind right away, and this was absolutely one of them. And I was just like, I just don't want to have such the obvious list. Which one of these 5 can I maybe move out for something else? And the only one I could conceive moving out was this one, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't really be there. It's a really great.
It's kind of like I'm fairly sure that somebody else will have it on the list, so we can still talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's basically
exactly
how we did.
What I was thinking.
Each of us had at least one movie that we were like, okay, we know the other two are going to talk about.
Absolutely. That Brian's like, I know somebody's gonna have some Star Wars, so
yeah,
I'm good. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I honestly think Clear and Present Danger is a better movie, but this is a great movie. I'm glad you guys mentioned it. Yeah. I actually, remember very vividly seeing it in the theater with my dad. It was just one of those great, father-son movies. I was like 14, and it was just like so thrilling to see that film at that time in the theater. Directed by Andrew Davis, who did some really good underrated action movies in the 80s and 90s. It's a cracking, great film, taking an old, like you said, an old TV show concept, updating it, like back in the 60s or whenever that show was, the idea of, oh, my wife was killed by a one-armed man was such like a corny idea, and they make it so real in this, and okay, if you have mean, and the way he's got to research that, figure that out, kind of track him down, and like dealing with what that would mean in the 90s in terms of, prosthetics and things like that. It takes this old idea and brings such intelligence to it. Mm-hmm. And I think, though it's definitely, I think the standout action movie from the 90s for Harrison Ford, he's really not an action character. He's a doctor. Yeah. He's just a guy who's on the run and trying to, live by his wits and figure this thing out and catch, the real guy before he gets caught again. And I think he portrays that very believably. So yeah, it's a really
great one. As a Chicago area guy, he gets bonus points for using Chicago so much. So
yeah.
And he was beat out by a very tiny movie known as Schindler's List.
Yeah. You get a Best Picture nomination the same year as Schindler's List. That's saying something. So yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So that was your number 2. So we go to Nick's number 2 here.
My number 2. Okay. I'm going to go with another incredibly obvious one, and I'm going to go with Indiana Jones, specifically Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All right. Do you have this one, Brian?
I did not put that on my list.
Okay, wow. So you didn't pick that one. So I think what I'm going to do, this is also my number 2. So
that's fine. Normally let's go
ahead and talk about it now. I'm going to let you start, and then I'll jump on after, because it's also my number 2.
That's how Dan usually does it. Is just if it's the same as someone else's, we start.
Yeah, we're on the same level there. So go ahead, Nick.
Well, I mean, it's it's Indiana Jones, and it's I mean, there's not much more to say about him. It's just mainly this Raiders of the Lost Ark with the Nazis being the bad guys and him, and just I loved the storyline of this entire film, and being able, like, just the whole scene where he's sneaking into the Nazi book burning and having to go through.
That's actually the third. That's the third one.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
A lot of great scenes, though. I'm sure
I thought that was the second one. Oh no. Okay. Anyways, still the same.
A lot
character.
of great scenes. Marion.
We brought him in with 5 minutes notice. Give him a break.
Yeah, you're good. You're good, buddy. Don't worry about it.
But yes, so just. I mean, his sarcastic nature the whole time. And, of course, the iconic line, snakes, why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah, there you go.
And just, and that whole of finding the Ark, and why am I forgetting the sidekick's name?
You've got Sala.
The guy who plays Gimli in the Lord of the Rings.
That's Sala. Yeah, Sala is John Rhys Davies. And then Marcus Brody is the other one. Yeah,
Marcus Brody, he's great too. And then you got the iconic, like the guy like showing off his sword skills. He shoots him in the head.
Another.
Anyways, but I guess like it's a super entertaining movie the whole way through, and I mean it's definitely, as soon as you hear of I feel like it's equal or even slightly above Han Solo, you think of Harrison Ford. It's absolutely Indiana Jones. So I don't know, I love the whole series of movies. The Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
So
it's a great 3 movies. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, you did good, Nick. Don't worry. You're good. Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing thing if you look back, because basically, this was an idea that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were cooking up together. They're working this movie. They're like, who are we going to cast? And one of the first things they said, well, absolutely not Harrison, because Harrison is Han Solo. He's known for being Han Solo. We can't, have him for this. We got to find someone else. The whole side story. They got Tom Selleck. He was cast last minute, couldn't do it because of his TV contract with Magnum PI. So, you know what? Let's try it with Harrison. And you know what? It's just amazing. He's iconic in this role in a completely different way than he was as Han Solo. It's a very different character. They set up right, pretty early on. This guy is a college professor who, is also an adventurer, because he's trying to find, antiquities and artifacts to bring to the museum, because this, is his passion. He's again kind of an intelligent guy, also a man of action. I think that's kind of an ongoing theme in Harrison Ford's career. And they came up with these things to make him iconic: the hat, the bullwhip, the outfit that he wears, and the fact that it's in the 1930s, and he has brings a little bit of that Humphrey Bogart sort of Clark Gable thing to this role that you really buy into. Like, this is a 1930s guy. It really sets him apart from Han Solo. And I just think there's just something special about what he does, especially in this first movie. There are moments of heart in this. The relationship he has with Marion, who had formerly been, a student or something. He had been like a TA and she was like a student. They'd had this thing that's probably, it's something that Indy would get very Me Too'd for one of the these days. But, back in the 30s,
I was a child.
It's just stuff. It's just, you took advantage. Yeah, it's just stuff that happened back then. You knew what you were doing. Oh no, I just got Me Too'd for sure. All right. But he brings some art. There's a good relationship there. You get a little bit of, the relationship he has with Marcus Brody, who he works with at the museum, who's kind of his mentor a little bit. And there's a real great arc here, that we will see again in the other Indiana Jones films of, man of action, man of faith. Like, there are things going on of a supernatural element, and he's got to kind of contend with that. And there's a scene at the end that I've argued with people a lot about, where, there's something really big going on, and he's like, don't look at it, close your eyes. And they're like, I don't understand that. Doesn't make any sense. But I think it's a great moment for this character, for Harrison Ford, because it's like, I have reverence for this thing. I'm not going to look at this thing. I'm going to, just try to be, mindful of this thing, this power that's higher than me, this thing that in this moment I believe in and I'm reverent of. And I think that that's an incredible moment for his character and his great arc. And though I think I know what Brian picked for this series, and I can't really argue with it because it's a great, movie and a great entry for this character too. But for me, what he did and what he was able to do, especially with them not even wanting to cast him in this movie, is so incredible. And it is my personal favorite action movie. So I had to go with this one for Raiders for my number 2. So I believe that puts us at our number 1s, which is
let me comment on Raiders first. If you'd gone with Crystal Skull, I could go with it, but I hate Raiders. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Brian, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ryan.
No, it's just fine. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie of all time, not just Harrison Ford, of all movies, period.
Yes.
It's just, so, I mean, it didn't put on my list because I wanted to represent one that gets underrepresented. Just saying, I'll be there. But also, just I knew it'd come up, and again, it's like, what more can be said about that the two of you didn't already cover? I mean, it is so iconic, and he is. When I think of Harrison Ford, I do think of Indiana Jones actually before Han Solo, because yes, Han Solo was first, and he's just like iconic character. But you kind of think of Star Wars, you think of the trio. Indiana Jones is just him,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you really do, and I like Jeremy talking about how it's kind of that comparison to Humphrey Bogart, which he gets a lot through his career. I mean, he did 6 Days, 7 Nights. They compared it to African Queen, and of course, he took his Bogart's role in Sabrina. And so he's kind of had that, because he has that same kind of personality. But so yeah, Raiders, my favorite movie of all time for all the same reasons you guys have already mentioned.
Even though you have Temple of Doom behind you.
I think I might stand corrected with what I was thinking you were doing, Brian, which excites me. But all right, so
you are correct.
We are at the number 1, so I think I know what you have.
My number 1, I put Indiana Jones Temple of Doom.
Oh, okay.
Now here's the thing: is Indiana
I
Jones.
can't tell you how much I love you right now. Go ahead.
Indiana Jones, of course, like my favorite movie character, because as you can tell, and Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite of the trilogy. But Indiana Jones: Temple of Doom, I love almost as much. This movie gets so much criticism and so much dislike, and I don't understand why. Because I loved it the first time I watched it, and I've loved it more ever since. And I don't know. I mean, it is a little bit darker movie in tone, and there's much has been talked about how Lucas was going through a divorce at the time, and that's maybe why he did it. But I think there's a room for darker stories, and I have no problem with that. Not everything needs to be light and fluffy. Not the Raiders was all light and fluff, but this is a darker movie. But I liked it. I liked all the new characters they brought in, even if it was for just one movie, which I kind of liked that they would do just separate stories and not everything had to be interconnected. But I mean, Ford was in the best shape of his life. I think he was doing the best action he's ever done. His personality has never shown through more than it did in this movie in so many scenes, whether it be the banter with Willie Scott, or whether it be dealing with almost like his surrogate son or his adopted son in Short Round. And then of course the action scenes. And I love this movie, and I don't understand why more people don't, and so I wanted to make sure to represent it on my list. And since the Indiana Jones movies are probably my favorite movies of Harrison Ford's, I put one of them up top, and I just chose to put this one.
All right, I just gotta say, I like you, Brian. I think this is one of the movies I probably argue with people about the most. There's some real hate and vitriol for this movie, and honestly, it's not new. Like I've been seeing it, since the 80s. I mean, this is a movie that I just think, you get into these franchises and people expect one thing, and if they take a left turn a little bit and do something different, people don't like that. This isn't, what I thought I was getting with this movie. What is this? You get that a lot. I think there are some honest criticisms of it. I think Lily is, not, maybe not the best character.
Oh yeah, she's a very shrill character, and she's kind of annoying. But I thought that was the character, and I thought it worked well against him, because the way she annoyed him so much, it worked so well.
I think it's pretty funny, but I could see people thinking, when you had such a strong character with Marion, to kind of take a step back with this character. I could see that. And, obviously with the Indian culture and the stuff they're dealing with, there's some complaints, with some of the cultural representations there that I can see. But I've always thought it's such an entertaining movie. I think it has really some of the best action of the series. And I just think it's great how they went from this globe-trotting idea to the more of the James Bond, okay, there's this fortress, there's this place we've got to get into, and we have a mission we've got to perform, and it's all just going deeper and deeper and deeper into this thing that they've got to get into, chamber by chamber, and then trying to escape it, and then all of a sudden, we got to get the hell out of here thing, and it's really a great, way to do an action movie. And one thing you didn't mention, there's a couple things, I know I didn't even pick this movie, but I love it. There's so much I can say. One of the things is, this is one of the first major prequels. This takes place before Raiders, and I think it really is one of maybe gives the best arc for Indy, because at the beginning of this movie, he really is just more of a fortune hunter. He's just kind of out to get, like he says, fortune and glory, money, recognition, maybe some fame. He's kind of out there, maybe not having the best motives. And by the end of this movie, you can kind of see where he ends up in the place where he is to go on the journey that he goes in Raiders. And I think it really is an arc for him, kind of discovering what's important and what he, being a little more altruistic and taking these artifacts and things more seriously, and seeing that there are more, perhaps supernatural forces out there.
And I thought it was a very smart move of them to make it a prequel, because they knew that they'd kind of, if they made a sequel, they would have to explain, where's Marion and all this kind of thing. And also, like you said, his character had changed. He wasn't, exactly the same globetrotting guy he was before that. So they were able to go back and make it more like kind of like you described the James Bond thing, which is how they originally came up with Indiana Jones. Is George wanted to make a James Bond movie. Well, Steven Spielberg one.
Steven Spielberg did, yeah. And then the other thing is, there's a whole subplot of the movie where the Mola Ram, who's the villain, great villain, by the way, one of my favorites. He's like the high priest of this thuggy cult, and he has people drink this blood, and they go under the spell where
Brother
they're basically
Kali.
like hypnotized. Yeah, they're hypnotized to basically be like foot soldiers, and that happens to India. And there's this really creepy scene where Harrison Ford is like drank the blood, and he's like contorting his body, and you can see like within him, he's like trying to fight to get out of this, but he's stuck in it, in the agony that he yells and stuff. And then you just see him kind of being hypnotized after this, like a really dark, awesome sequence that really showcases Harrison doing something different. And, you know, he doesn't get to do anything like that in any of the other Indiana Jones films. So there really is some cool stuff here that I don't think gets its full appreciation. But Nick, anything to say on this movie? Wax poetic.
Sorry, we'll let you talk now.
I know, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I love this movie.
I mean, just to kind of comment on what you two said, you know, Short Round just kind of compliments everybody. I loved his, you know, as a child actor, he did a really good job of like just bouncing off of the other two. And I mean, like Brian said, I keep forgetting her name.
Willie.
But Billy, like that's the main thing. It's like, oh, Billy's so annoying. I hate this movie. That's really the first thing that comes to everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't mention anything else. They're like, oh God, that Billy character is so freaking annoying. I can't watch this movie. But I mean, like you said, it worked. But no, and the way Harrison Ford bounces off of her it works really well. So, and just, you know, that intro scene is fantastic.
I remember the first time I saw the movie. I must have been, 84. So I must have been like, I don't know, 11 when I went to see the movie. And I remember going in there and like, did we walk into the right movie? Because it's like a musical playing. Like, what? And so until you saw, you know, them bring out Harrison Ford, well, I guess the title finally came up. But until that moment, we were like, I'm in the wrong theater. But I loved it. I loved it. Because Spielberg always wanted to do a musical, and he's finally going to West Side Story. So we'll see.
I love that film. Like, I love the whole trilogy. I love Last Crusade. I love all of them. Like, I feel like it's a super well done trilogy. We can leave out Crystal Skull. I'm just talking about the first.
What?
Three.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad. I must have misspoken then.
and actually, Temple of Doom is a very timely movie because, you know, Harrison Ford and his friend in the beginning was Wuhan. Stop blaming him for the virus. Stop it.
It's not him. Exactly.
All right. So before we go to the next number one, I just want to say I thought Brian was going to do Last Crusade. I honestly did. And I think that would be a very good pick, too, because, you know, I could easily have had Last Crusade on here because Harrison's great in that. And he gets to interplay with one of the other great, you know, icons in Sean Connery. So,
if this is my pure actual top five, all three Indiana Jones are three.
Absolutely. So I just want to say that before we move on to something else. So, all right, so I guess we go to Nick. I think I know what it is, but what is your number one?
It is, you probably know exactly what it is.
It's Hollywood Homicide. No.
Yes, Hollywood Homicide. No. I am going to go with Blade Runner. Like I said, no hesitation. But it's, I mean, this is one of the first, like, this movie got me into sci-fi fantasy films. I watched this when I was in like high school, and I was like, "Wow!" I like even for a movie that was so much older. You know, sorry not to call out everybody's age here. I was born in '86, so I'm kind of I'm the younger person in this.
We were born in the '70s. We're old. We know.
So this is one of the first like really exposure to the 80s sci-fi, and I was like, wow, this is super well done. Just the opening shot of flying over, you know, the Tyrell Corporation and everything, and I was like, okay, I love this stuff, and kind of got me on my track of where I am now. But I mean, the whole but I guess we're here to talk about Harrison Ford, obviously. So but Deckard is just, I mean, he's just very, you know, straight to the point. Like, okay, I'm searching replicants. I'm going to figure out what these are. And then Rutger Hauer, rest in peace, great villain in this film. And, you know, Ridley Scott did a great job shooting this film. But I mean, Harrison Ford is just amazing through this whole film, and it's just on top of everything else that's going on. I mean, I'm almost speechless because I can't think of any words to put into fruition here. But it's really, this is, I mean, to be honest, this is one of my first. I mean, I had seen some Star Wars before, but this is my first huge exposure to Harrison Ford. So this is why it's at the top of my list. So.
Yeah, and obviously a great pick at number one, Nick. This was my number 3. This was definitely probably my first exposure to Harrison Ford, non-Indiana Jones, non-Star Wars. And I think it was a real shock for me to see him in such a different role, playing kind of this noir character. Again, maybe some Humphrey Bogart, comparisons of kind of this, he's not exactly a private detective. He's a guy who hunts down these replicants in this kind of futuristic LA, but it's kind of got that vibe. He very much, Ridley Scott was going for a sci-fi noir feel with this film. And it really feels like those old noir films. It has kind of a noir story where the good guy really isn't that good. The bad guys really aren't that bad. And it's all kind of in this gray sort of thing. And I think Harrison Ford is really great in this film. It is, a far more restrained, emotionally pulled back character. He doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve like he does in Star Wars. He isn't like a go-getter, adventurer like Indiana Jones. He is this guy who does this job, who lives in a really harsh, life in a harsh city. And, he's kind of struggling with, can he even connect to other people? And the one person he kind of has connection with is really not even a person, and it's somebody who is a replicant. But what makes us human? What makes us not human? Where is that line? And you get into that with Sean Young's character, and of course Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer, one of the all-time great movie characters, especially of the 80s. And it's a fantastic movie, and I just really think it's important for Harrison. I think it really set the stage for some of the films he was going to go on to do that were different, that were more thoughtful and more thought-provoking. And you had all those iconic John Williams scores we even mentioned with the Star Wars movies and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. But now you've got this, iconic score from Vangelis that you can't think of Blade Runner without thinking of that score and seeing you see those images of Harrison Ford and all those characters. It's iconic stuff. I think it really is landmark sci-fi, and kind of almost hand in hand with Blade Runner 2049, which I think was a fantastic follow-up. Really takes us back into that world, and like Brian said, more of a supporting role for Harrison, but you really do see him come back as that character. You see that same kind of emotional pull in that character, the stuff he's struggling with, and there's a really beautiful kind of catharsis at the end with him that I really love. So a great arc from that first movie to the second. So a really great choice for number 1. All right, so that takes me to my number 1, and much to my shock, it is one that neither of you guys had on your lists. It's one of the first movies I think of when I think of Harrison Ford, and it's actually the only movie in his career he had an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, and it is the 1985 film Witness by Peter Weir, where Harrison Ford plays John Book, a police detective who, there's a shooting in I think it's the train station, and a little boy is the only witness, and the little boy happens to be from an Amish community. And Harrison Ford, I'm not going to give everything away, but some things are revealed. There's some stuff comes up, and Harrison Ford actually has to kind of take the little boy and his mother back to the Amish community, kind of to protect them, also to kind of hide out and figure out what he wants to do in dealing with this, terrible situation that they're in. And, it starts off as kind of a, all right, it's an 80s police drama. We kind of know what this is. And then it turns into this really wonderful human romantic drama sort of film for the whole midsection where Harrison Ford's living in this community, seeing another way of living. He's this big city guy, and he's kind of coming down to seeing how these people who, they swear off technology, they live off the land, they have this community and this farmland that's all theirs. That's the only world that they exist in. And he kind of goes back to this mindset a little bit. And, he's kind of like, still playing his music and doing his stuff and, being a little sarcastic. But you can also see this reverence build with these people. And then there is kind of a romance between him and the lead actress, Kelly McGillis, that comes that I think is one of the best romantic relationships in any Harrison Ford movie. As awesome as it is to see Indiana Jones and the different dames in his life, to see him have a connection in a movie like this with another actress is really great. And it does go back. There's a third act and gets more into the thriller stuff, and everything comes to a head, which is really well done. But I just think this is Harrison Ford really finding who he wants to be as a dramatic actor. Just still a little bit of that action, sort of stuff that he can do. But I just really think this is the ultimate expression of him as an actor, as a star. And again, he did get that Oscar nomination. And I think Peter Weir is a really underrated, great director from Australia who did some of my favorite movies in the 80s. And they kind of did a back-to-back 1-2 punch with this movie and a movie called The Mosquito Coast, which I also think is very underrated, a really great kind of drama with Harrison Ford playing more of an unlikable character in that movie. But, just a great relationship between actor and director with Harrison Ford and Peter Weir in these two films. So I'll go to you guys. Brian, anything that you have to say about Witness? I know it was on your guys' list, but I feel like it might still be one you guys have some thoughts on.
This is the one that I didn't want to mention in spoil because I figured it might be on somebody's list. Picking for one of his more dramatic, that showcased his actual acting ability. Yes. This was, obviously he said he was his Oscar nomination. This was the other one I almost chose for it. Witness, I really like this movie. I thought his performance in it is great. I just didn't pick it because I guess I just enjoy Regarding Henry a little bit more.
Yeah.
But fair. It's not a matter of one's good and one's bad because Witness is an excellent movie. Like he's an underrated director. The supporting cast in this is great, from little Lucas Haas all the way to Viggo Mortensen's in this movie.
Young Viggo Mortensen.
Alexander Goodenough, who I like seeing because Carl from Die Hard.
And Ghostbusters.
Danny Glover's in there. So it's got a great supporting cast, and like you said, it's just it's an underrated movie, and it's really one that again showcases his actual ability to act. He's not just an action star.
Absolutely. And Nick, I think you've seen this one.
No, that's. Let me type it in my list over here that I have. I know. I was like, wow, there's a lot of Harrison Ford films I haven't seen, but
that's all right.
No, I just added to the list of like, okay, when his name's brought up, this is a film that is brought up. So. It's like I'm looking at the cast. I was like, no, this looks fantastic, and hopefully I can, add it to my ongoing list of things to watch.
And you have you get to watch these movies still, nothing to feel bad about. I did a Dwayne the Rock Johnson list, and I've seen less than half of his movies, so you're totally good.
We had a 10-year head start on you, so
Plus, exactly. We're old people that were alive and going to see most of the stuff in the theaters, so you're totally cool. All right, so before we wrap up here, let's get some honorable mentions. I'm gonna go ahead and start with Brian. I know a lot of movies got mentioned already, but are there anything else you'd like to shout out?
There's a lot of great movies he's in. The two that I wanted to single out, though, I almost put Sabrina on my list, just because again it was him able to show a different side to him. He not a romantic comedy kind of guy for the most part. I mean, he's popped up in something here and there, but I thought that he was able to find one that fit him very well because, like we said, it was that Humphrey Bogart kind of character, kind of role, and he took his role in that movie. And I thought that was very good. And the other one, actually, you mentioned, as an overall movie, it would not make my list, and that's Mosquito Coast. But as far as his performance and some of the relationships in it, like him, especially him and River Phoenix as father and son. I mean, obviously they both played Indiana Jones, but this is them being able to act together and against each other. And I thought that his acting and their relationship was phenomenal. The movie I thought was okay. It had its hit and miss parts, but as far as his performance, I thought that was great.
All right, and then Nick, anything else that you had there?
I mean, everything else has been discussed because I had Air Force One, I had Patriot Games, I had all those. The one that sticks out to me, I don't know, just because I enjoy watching it when it comes on, is the one called What Lies Beneath.
That's one of my honorable mentions. Good one.
And I was just like, that's a really good psychological thriller with him and Michelle Pfeiffer, and like, just like, yeah, good being at a lake house and having one neighbor and the interaction between those two neighbors. And I don't know, it just really sticks out in my mind whenever I think of Harrison Ford. I was like, oh, that's a really good one that he did. So it's that's really the only one, like I said, that hadn't been discussed already.
Yeah, and directed by Robert Zemeckis, and
I forgot that Zemeckis
Hitchcockian twists and turns where you get to see some more of Harrison Ford's character later on that I won't give away, but some really good stuff that he does in that movie. Obviously for me, we've mentioned a lot of other movies already: Fugitive, the other Star Wars films, Last Crusade, 42, a lot of great stuff. But there's two other movies I will single out real quick. One is, I think, the movie that put him on the map. It's a small role, but it's a very memorable one, and that's George Lucas's American Graffiti, where he plays the hotshot street racer Bob Falfa. He's really so charming, so cocky, so young in that movie, and I really think it's great to kind of see the seeds of Han Solo in that movie. So I would definitely mention that one. And then the other movie I want to give a shout out to is Brian had mentioned, he has done comedy throughout his career. He's played, it isn't all action and drama and stuff. So I want to give a mention to the movie Working Girl, and another Mike Nichols movie in the late 80s, where he has kind of a more supporting role. He's kind of done a few supporting roles here and there with Melanie Griffith and Sigourney Weaver. He's kind of this hotshot business guy who forms a relationship with this younger woman who's trying to make it. And there's some misunderstandings about who's who, but it's a smart movie. It's a very funny movie, and it really shows that lighter side of Harrison Ford that you get now and then. So, all right. I think that covers our picks, our honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and say it all again. Brian, starting at number 5, let's hear your top 5 list for Harrison Ford.
Oh, I was deleting them as I went. My 5, at 5, I had Frisco Kid. At 4, which one did I put it for? Air Force One, I think.
Yes.
Number 3, I had Regarding Henry. Okay. Number 2, I put The Fugitive. Number 1, I put Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
There you go. Really good, really interesting, good list. Nick, you're 5 to 1.
All right. My 5 was 42. Mm-hmm. My 4 was The Fugitive. 3 was Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back. My 2 was Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and my 1 was Blade Runner.
All right, and hey, I never even wrote down a top 5. I'm going off the cuff here, but I think I can do this. My number 5 was Clear and Present Danger, playing Jack Ryan. My number 4 was Han Solo in The Empire Strikes Back. My number 3 was Rick Deckard in Blade Runner. My number 2, Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and number 1 is John Book in Witness. All right, so before we wrap things up here, I'm going to go ahead and give some love to the guy who actually runs this show, Dan Skip Allen. I'll just run through. He actually sent me his list. So his top 5 were, his number 5 was Blade Runner. His number 4 was The Fugitive. His number 3 was Witness. Number 2 was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and number 1 is Empire Strikes Back. So
we covered it all.
A lot of the.
I mean, we covered all 5 of
choice. And also honorable mentions. You had Air Force One, Patriot Games, Mosquito Coast. So a lot of things that were mentioned there. Didn't want to forget about you, Dan. Feel better, my friend. We're hoping to see you back here on the top 5 soon. So let's go and wrap that up. Wrap the show up tonight. We'll go and see if we have any plugs. Brian, anything? Where can we find you?
Just all over the community. I'm competing in trivia. I'm appearing on shows like this. I'm no longer a showrunner over at Movie Warzone, but I'm still, helping out over there a lot with editing and occasional question writing and things like that. Otherwise, just I'll pop up everywhere in this community. You'll see me. You're sick of me.
Absolutely. And Nick, where can we find you?
I mean, I'm pretty much exactly like Brian. I participate pretty much everything. Facebook's my most active thing, so if you message me there, I will certainly reply back. And just trying to get involved as much as possible because this is a great community. So I'm happy to be a part of it. So
great to have you. And you can find me, Jeremy Paul Adams, on both YouTube and Facebook. My stuff, you can find me there. I believe I'm Jared Move Buff on Twitter. But, I'm also, one of the league runners at Full Metal Trivia, Full Metal Media, a great movie trivia group that we have there. You can find me all over the other fan leagues and everything that we do in this community. And probably most important of all, I have the honor of writing questions for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. I think anyone who's watching this is aware of that great show and everything that they're doing there. And then I will just finish by giving a couple plugs for Dan, his show again. You can still find reviews and things that he's written at cinesportstalk.com, and currently his work at disappointmentmedia.com, DISAPOINTMENT media.com. So check that all out. All right. It was a great show, guys. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. I think I might be hosting another one of these, so we look forward to that. This has been the Top 5 Weekly, and we are out.